What would drive human beings to face down animals 10 times their size, armed with nothing but spears, courage, and a will to survive? Why? Would kings risk their lives chasing lions, pharaohs wrestle hippos, and entire tribes depend on buffalo herds for life itself? The answer lies in a tradition as old as humanity itself: big game hunting. Today we uncover the shocking, fascinating, and often controversial story of how big game hunting shaped human survival, culture, and even the course of history. Welcome to Whispers of Lost World. I'm M. Noman Rashid, and in this episode, we're going on a journey through time back to when our ancestors first faced mammoths and saber-toothed cats, through the royal courts of kings and emperors, to the wild frontiers of Africa and America, and finally into the modern debates over conservation and ethics. By the end of this video, you'll see that big game hunting is not just about killing animals, it's about survival, power, spirituality, identity, and the complicated relationship humans have always had with the natural world. If you're passionate about history, anthropology, or simply curious about the traditions that defined entire civilizations, this is a story you don't want to miss. Our story begins tens of thousands of years ago. In the heart of the Ice Age, imagine standing on a frozen plain, your breath clouding in the cold air. In the distance, a massive woolly mammoth grazes, unaware of the hunters creeping closer. For early humans, this wasn't sport, it was survival. Big game animals like mammoths, bison, aurochs, giant elk provided everything a community needed: meat to eat, hides for clothing, bones for tools, and fat for fuel. A single successful hunt could sustain a group for weeks. Archaeological evidence from Vestanas in the Czech Republic reveals massive kill sites, where early humans worked together to drive herds of mammoths into traps or ambush them near cliffs. These weren't reckless attacks, they were highly strategic, requiring planning, cooperation, and courage. Big game hunting was one of the first forces that bonded humans into strong communities. To take down a creature weighing several tons, people needed to communicate, coordinate, and trust one another. In many ways, big game hunting was the training ground where humanity learned teamwork and leadership. In Washington state, researchers uncovered 15,000-year-old spear tips designed with incredible precision. These weren't crude tools. They were weapons crafted by experts, showing that hunting had already evolved into a skill passed down from generation to generation. For early humans, hunting a mammoth wasn't just about food. It was a demonstration of intelligence, skill, and courage. As humans advanced, hunting large animals began to take on symbolic meaning. It was no longer only about food. It was about identity, adulthood, and power. In many African societies, young men were expected to prove their bravery by hunting lions. Among the Maasai of East Africa, a warrior who could successfully hunt a lion earned not only respect but also status within the community. This wasn't random violence against animals, it was deeply ritualized, a way of marking the transition from youth to adulthood. Similarly, in Native American cultures, hunting buffalo was a sacred act. Plains tribes like the Lakota and the Blackfoot depended on buffalo for food, clothing, and tools. A successful buffalo hunt wasn't just an economic necessity, it was a communal celebration, often accompanied by rituals, dances, and storytelling that reinforced cultural values. In medieval Europe, the tradition of big game hunting shifted again. Here, hunting became the privilege of kings, nobles, and knights. Royal hunts were grand spectacles, where rulers demonstrated their control not just over nature, but over their subjects. Hunting wild boar, stags, or bears was considered the ultimate test of courage and strength. Kings often invited foreign dignitaries to hunts, using them as displays of power and diplomacy. One famous story tells us that Alexander the Great once fought a lion in single combat before his troops. Whether fact or legend, the tale illustrates how hunting was used to prove bravery and divine favor. Across cultures, the message was the same. To hunt big game successfully was to demonstrate leadership, courage, and superiority. Hunting, however, wasn't just physical, it was deeply spiritual. Many cultures saw animals as sacred beings with spirits that needed to be respected. Killing without honor was thought to bring misfortune. In the caves of Lascaux, France, prehistoric paintings depict bulls, horses, and deer in extraordinary detail. Some researchers believe these paintings were part of hunting rituals, an early form of sympathetic magic, where drawing the animal helped ensure a successful hunt. The San people of southern Africa practiced trance dances before hunts, connecting spiritually with the animals they sought. They believed the hunter and the hunted shared a bond, and taking an animal's life required reverence and gratitude. In Inuit traditions, hunters performed ceremonies to honor the souls of whales, seals, and caribou. If these rituals were neglected, it was believed the animals would refuse to appear again, making survival impossible. Hunting, in this sense, was not just about taking life, it was about maintaining balance between humans and the natural world. Even in ancient Egypt, pharaohs staged dangerous hippo hunts not only to prove bravery, but also to enact a symbolic struggle between order and chaos. The hippopotamus represented the god Seth, the embodiment of chaos, and defeating it symbolized the triumph of the king's power and divine right to rule. As human societies grew wealthier and more technologically advanced, the purpose of hunting shifted once again. By the 18th and 19th centuries, big game hunting was no longer about survival or spirituality. It had become a sport, a symbol of status, and an expression of dominance. In Europe, aristocrats hunted stags, bears, and wild boar as a way of displaying wealth and refinement. Elaborate hunting parties were as much about social gatherings as they were about the hunt itself. Hunting lodges, hounds, and falconry became markers of noble culture. But it was during the age of colonial expansion that big game hunting truly became global. European explorers, settlers, and adventurers traveled to Africa and Asia, where they hunted lions, tigers, elephants, and rhinoceroses. Safaris became legendary experiences, immortalized in travelogues and adventure stories. Hunters like Theodore Roosevelt and Frederick Selous became cultural icons. Their hunting trophies, displayed in museums and private collections, symbolize conquest, not just of animals, but of lands and peoples. Colonial powers used hunting to demonstrate superiority, often disregarding the impact on local ecosystems and indigenous communities. This era also introduced the concept of the trophy hunt, where the goal was not food but the display of horns, tusks, or skins. Mounted animal heads became fashionable decorations in the halls of European elites. For many, hunting became less about necessity and more about ego. But this period had dire consequences. Overhunting led to the near extinction of species like the American bison, African elephants, and Bengal tigers. The desire for glory and prestige nearly wiped out animals that had survived for millions of years. In today's world, big game hunting remains one of the most controversial traditions. On one side, it is condemned as cruel, unnecessary, and destructive. On the other, supporters argue that regulated hunting provides crucial funding for conservation and helps protect endangered species from poaching. In countries like Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana, legal hunting permits generate millions of dollars annually. These funds are often reinvested into wildlife protection, anti-poaching patrols, and local community development. For rural communities, hunting tourism can provide jobs, food, and education. Supporters argue that without these benefits, local people might turn to poaching or land clearance, which could devastate ecosystems even more. But the moral dilemma remains. Is it right to kill an animal for sport, even if it helps protect its species in the long run? The controversy reached global attention in 2015, when Cecil the lion, beloved and well-studied animal in Zimbabwe, was killed by a trophy hunter. The incident sparked international outrage, with millions taking to social media to condemn the act. It also forced governments and conservation groups to reconsider hunting laws and wildlife protection strategies. Today, the debate continues. For some, big game hunting is a cultural heritage that should be preserved, albeit with regulation. For others, it is an outdated tradition that humanity must leave behind as we redefine our relationship with the natural world. So, what have we uncovered today? Big game hunting began as a struggle for survival during the Ice Age, where humans relied on mammoths and bison for food and resources. Over time, it became a rite of passage, a marker of courage, and a symbol of leadership in cultures across the world. It carried deep spiritual significance, where hunters honored the animals they killed. Later, it evolved into a pursuit of kings, nobles, and colonizers, where prestige and trophies replaced necessity. And today, it survives in a controversial form, caught between conservation, ethics, and cultural tradition. Big game hunting has always reflected something deeper than the act itself. It reveals how humans see themselves in relation to nature. Whether as survivors, warriors, rulers, or protectors, the hunt has been a mirror of humanity's values and ambitions. If this journey into the world of big game hunting traditions intrigued you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It helps us bring more stories of ancient cultures and human traditions to light. Subscribe to Whispers of Lost World for more deep dives into the fascinating past. And let me know in the comments, do you believe big game hunting should be preserved as a cultural tradition, or should it be left in history books? Your voice might spark the next big discussion.